untitled.co.uk.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذاريات ذروا فالحاملات وقرا فالجاريات يسرا فالمقسمات أمرا إنما توعدون لصادق وإن الدين
Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome to the Elevate show with myself, Saf. Today we won't have Mia with us today, but we do have Maliha. So
Assalamu alaikum everybody, I'm Maliha, Mal for short.
And today's topic is a little bit sensitive for some, but today we'll be discussing topics of the youth and how it affects us as youth and everything around us, and we'll have discussions that to elevate each other. And today's topic is grief. Maliha, do you want to just introduce yourself?
So I have just finished my journalism course at Peterborough College, and inshallah I plan on going to uni to study journalism. And I've always been interested in radio shows and being on the radio and getting my name out there, and alhamdulillah this opportunity came for me, and yeah, here I am right now.
Here we are. So today's topic, I don't know if you want to, is a bit sensitive and could be some triggering for some people, so this is just be aware that it might be a bit difficult for some. So we're talking about grief from the perspective of grief of somebody who's experiencing it and has experienced it, and of people, there's different types obviously, but we might talk about some specific ones. So do you want to just go ahead and talk about what grief is a little bit?
Well, speaking on my own experience, right now I'm actually going through grief, which is probably one of the most painfulest things anyone will ever feel.
Of course.
And to me, grief is obviously losing the person you love, but it's more painful because you're never seeing that person again and never being in their company, actually seeing them, having a conversation with them, you know. And
it sort of feels a bit like unrealistic in the sense of like it just feels like a dream, like that's happening, and then you come to terms with it eventually, of course. But I feel like, sorry, I don't want to like cut you off, but grief, I also think it doesn't just come from losing somebody, it comes from losing things as well, not just materialistic things, like things that are important to you, and something in your heart, basically is what I mean. So of course that person may have been in your heart, of course, so losing them must be really hard. So
it's I honestly, words can't explain. And right now I'm trying to find sabr, patience, guidance from Allah, making dua, and really time for reflecting and healing. And grief, it teaches you so many important life lessons, and I think the biggest one is realizing how precious life is. And
how short it is, quite honestly.
How short it is. It's just appreciating those people around you who put a smile on your face.
The little things.
It's the little things in life, honestly, you know. Everyone's always talking about the big achievements, their biggest goals, their bucket list. You need to
do this to get to the next step and everything. But it's also just, I don't know, maybe just having to sit down with your family for dinner. Just like that. That is so, I personally, like, alhamdulillah, my family, we do that. We sit together. That time is sometimes my favourite, if not all the time it's my favourite, I sit with my family and I just get to chill and talk and eat and just ask about your day. And I think that is such a thing that people forget. And I think when you lose someone and you're grieving about you, those are the memories you'll remember. You won't remember so much their huge achievements unless it's really important. But you'll remember like, I sat down with them and watched this TV show, and you'll come across it again and you'll be like, I remember.
Just being in their company is so wholesome after, a long day at work or at school.
Yeah, definitely.
You're fed up, you're tired, and you just want to be surrounded by, people who bring you happiness. Yeah,
definitely. So we're going to talk about how to deal with it and the things that we have as youth here and the communities that we have or the spaces that we have for that, and if we have any. So how are you feeling about that?
Well, I never experienced grief on this level before, and because it's impacted my life and my family's lives, I've actually, wondered, like, where can I go to to feel like I'm being supported, to feel like I have a safe place where I can just talk about grief and other people can also relate and feel like they feel the same way as me.
Definitely.
And it's come to my attention that I'm looking around and I can't find anything.
Definitely.
There's no mosque communities where you can go to where they do grief counselling or like activities. Youth communities. So my question is, like, why do we have such a lack of, support from our own Muslim, mosque communities?
What I want to say is, I do think that's very valid and that's very true. I think there is a community, a space for that, but I think it's more so for the level of the people, like the grown-ups, basically grown-ups. It is grown-ups. In the nicest way, of course, everybody is grieving and they have every right to have that source of support, of course. What I mean is, I feel like sometimes the child gets left behind, or some other members of family and whoever's suffering get left behind. And it's true, like you sit down and you're like, when you're in these communities, everyone's going to say I'm sorry for your loss to those people. It's never the children don't get the support that they, you know what I mean? Not just children, young people sort of do get a bit left behind. And sometimes we don't have places to turn. Sometimes you can't go to your school and explain things, or it's not the right, or some people don't feel comfortable enough to do that to these spaces, so they want to turn to a more comfortable place, and that's not available for you guys or for us. I
think it's like young people feel like they're going to be a burden if they do say, listen, hey, I'm struggling, I need some help, I need some support, especially because obviously, like, it's like, oh, well, you're young, so you don't really feel grief, or you don't understand what it is.
Yeah, you haven't struggled enough to feel something. And
exactly.
I don't agree with that term. Everybody struggles whenever and whatever stage of life. But I feel like that's not taken seriously, that term, that, everybody struggles at every part of their life, whether it might be small to you, to another person, but to yourself who's struggling with that thing, that is a huge thing to struggle with. It's, no matter what it is at that stage, it's important and it's big at that point in your life. People just from another perspective don't understand that, I think.
No, they don't. And it's like, especially for young people, like, they don't really know where to go, especially because the mosque we follow, I just feel like they're not really catering when it comes to like bringing in the younger the younger audience, and they constantly kind of cater for the older generation, putting on events for them where it's just men only, really. So women or young girls don't really feel included, where they can go for support or help, or guidance.
That is a shame. I do understand how you feel with that. I do think there are events depending on the mosque you go to and like the community that you're involved with, but again, it just varies really, doesn't it? So it's just how you find them, but it's difficult because there's not really much of an how do I say, adverts about it, or there's like no really
on social media, nothing. Or
I guess sometimes word of mouth can be good.
Word
of mouth is quite good, but at the same time, when it comes to these things, some people just need someone to reach out to, and they want something straightforward they can just straight contact. If there was somebody going through something and they did think straight away, look, I need help, I want a number to call, I want to talk to someone sort of straight away. You don't want to go through having to ask so many people, and that might not be the best way for some people. So,
honestly.
So we're going to talk about how we feel about, aside from the community, how we navigate grief as Muslims. Like, how else do you think you navigate grief? Obviously, you're going through it. How do you think you're feeling and you're navigating yourself at the moment? Just as on a personal level, if that's okay.
For me, I wasn't really knowledgeable about grief in Islam because I was never really taught about it.
I don't think we all are, to be honest. Like, me talking about this now, I'm like, I'm just thinking, like, really, when have we ever, we always talk about life. We don't really talk about the afterlife so much, where it's understanding, not scary, because sometimes it does come across scary. Obviously, nobody wants to go through that.
No one wants to think about it, We're always thinking in the moment, in the future, but never the afterlife.
Or like that point where it comes to a stop. So
So for me, I think it was educating myself what actually does happen when your soul leaves your body. What happens to you afterwards? How do you get into the highest rank of Jannah? Like, learning about that, but also like just talking about, the person I lost. I lost my cousin Ahmed, who was 17, just recently last Wednesday, and it's been very hard for everyone because he was so loved. He was a pillar in the community, honestly, and he was so popular. And I think every life that he stepped into, other people's lives, he made a difference.
That's the best way, you should always leave. I literally went to a talk yesterday night, and that person, the speaker, he did mention, when you go into a situation, you should come out making that situation better, or when meeting that person, you make them smile and you leave they leave with a smile, so do you. That effect, I think, alhamdulillah, he did that, and that's amazing. He did something for other people as well, not only himself, and I think it probably benefited him as well. So
he was so caring, honestly, like that, a really pious and gentle soul, alhamdulillah. And I think just talking about him with other people, I feel like I didn't even know him. Hearing all these amazing things he did for people and how he changed people's lives made me realize, maybe feel like I knew him and I'm so close to him now.
Yeah, I feel like you just speaking about, I'm just looking at you, smiling, you're smiling, you're thinking about it that way. I feel like that sense of grief that you're feeling, you sort of, it comes across as in the way you're talking, in the sense of I'm healing at the same time, because I'm grieving thinking about it, but I'm also healing thinking about it and talking about it, because you're giving all the good that you remember, and you're that way I feel people can, when talking to people, can talk about it in a way that they remember the happiness that they've been with that person. And then that heals them at the same time. People forget that, I think. They're just so lost in the thought of, I've lost this person.
Yeah, and they isolate themselves, and that's not good. I think you should be around people. You should talk about him,
Or whoever you lost, just talk about them.
Talk about them with your family, your friends. And I feel like that way, that's healing, and also reflecting the amazing person that you lost.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, any stage of this can affect your mental health. Again, you're obviously feeling, the way you're feeling. How do you think it's affecting your mental health? Obviously it's going to be not exactly high, I would assume.
It's definitely taken its toll. And I think I just feel myself spacing out a lot and just feeling not really motivated to do anything, because it's just hit me like a ton of bricks, and it's been really hard to process. But I think honestly just making dua has changed my life completely.
You've got that let out, in the sense of it's nobody else but yours.
Yeah.
There's not anybody else saying, talking over you, well, talking over you or anything, but it's, you're letting it out, and it's to Allah, somebody you trust, that trustworthy figure.
Yeah, dua is so powerful, and I think it, really heals you, but also makes you have hope that, he is, reunited with his dad and his brother, and that he's so happy, because I know that he was really struggling, and that he's just so appreciated and so loved, honestly. That's all he wanted, to be with his dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Inshallah,
Yeah.
it will be like that. But again, of course it's going to affect your mental health, and of course you're probably not in the best of states, and I think many people will be affected in grief. It affects everybody differently, and the amount of grief somebody has obviously can also really either make you really low, or people can eventually get through it. So with you, do you feel like you're, I don't want to pry but at a stage where you are at, since it was very recent, how do you feel you're coping with that?
Well, the first few days were not great, because
of course,
it's shock.
Yeah, shock.
It's pure shock that you don't process it. You think, I'm going to go to that person's house and they're going to be there.
It's like a loss of thing that you see all the time.
Yeah, honestly, you don't process it. And how could you, when you just saw that person and they're healthy and they were happy, But, obviously after his janazah, I felt like I felt really different, more at peace.
That's obviously,
Yeah.
I myself have been through something like that as well, but I exactly feel the same. You know, the first time I used to be, this is a bit weird, but I used to be scared to enter the graveyard. I used to have that fear, like, you know, I don't know, when you're young you have those things, but you know, when that person did pass, I felt, you know, sort of not happy, but, you know, able to and not feel scared, because I know these people are at peace where they are. Well, you would assume.
Yeah.
You would assume they'd be at peace
Yeah.
where they are, and, you know, they've been taken back to Allah, and, you know, they're where they are, and the only thing you can do is pray for them. And, you know, you go there, you feel at peace, because it's beautiful. If you think about it, you know, you were given a gift of life, and you've been taken, been taken back. You know, it's a gift, but it's also not a gift in that sense, because it's being taken back. But it's just amazing to think about. It really is. But yeah,
How did you deal with your grief?
to be honest, at the time I wasn't aware of what I wasn't young, but I just wasn't
There?
so you feel like you're not there.
No,
It feels like a completely different time zone. It's like, you know, a mess. But then you come to, because the relation wasn't too strong, but obviously it was there. And for me personally, it was quite a while back, so it's hard to really think about and be like, I felt this way. But now I look back on it, I do realize I struggled because I saw other people struggling. And I think that's what's forgotten, because when you think about it, children and young people, we're seeing these, you know, your people that you love who are older than you or younger than you crying for a reason, or you know, hurt for a reason. You don't tend to think what it is. You just see them crying, you get hurt because you're seeing the people you love cry, and you're hurt.
You don't want to see them in pain.
Pain, that's it, isn't it? So, you know, I don't know how you felt about that, how it's seeing, of course it's going to hurt.
It's heartbreaking,
and you take that away with you, I think, a lot of times. Well, at that point in my life I did. So yeah, bear with me. But how else do you think things are with grief? It's just difficult, isn't it?
You know, time is healing, but sometimes it can feel like it was just the first time you heard that they passed away again. Like, it feels like those some days.
You don't believe it.
Yeah, like the pain never really goes away, but, you know, life goes on, and you grow as a person, and you learn so many life lessons from this.
Yeah, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean you forget the whole thing and just straight move on. Of course not. You always will grieve, depending on, well, we always will. You know, this person was important to you, or this thing was important, whatever it may be. It was important to you. You will remember it. It will stay in your heart. That's the point. You know, it was there, but it's a learning curve, and it's there. I think people shouldn't forget that Allah did that for you to either stay close to Him and get through that, so it benefits you.
Yeah.
In the sense of, you've come through this. You've stuck through with Allah. And, you know, you've tried not to go astray or, you know, fall down. And you've got there. And if you do fall down, He's brought you back up. You know, and of course people will fall down. It's just a difficult time, but I think because you've, you know, alhamdulillah, I think you have. But the looks of it, you have. You know, you've gone through that. You've come through it, and, you know, you're getting there. It will take forever, and people should remember it's time. Will take time, and it's not to forget that, you know, Allah's there. And I forget that all the time, to be honest. Like, you know, Allah's there. It's hard to not think you're all alone.
Allah's always there during your hardest time, during the best time.
It's just to remember that. And I think people and myself, I don't know about you, but I do forget that sometimes, and you're just so caught up in
life. Life is going so fast, you forget to pause sometimes.
Because you're going through this, you're grieving, you're like, oh my God, I've lost this person, but you don't remember, like, the gift of that person in the first place. You know, that Allah gave you that blessing in the first place. Allah gave you the blessing. Look in the blessing that you got. You know, like, alhamdulillah, we even woke up today. The blessing in that in itself. It's just small things. That way you can remember that person did wake up for 17 years of his life. And alhamdulillah, he made the good of it, you know? So just to think of it in that way, I think, may help you.
It does.
But I mean, I don't know how about other people may feel, but, you know, thinking of it in that way, I think personally for myself is a better way to think about things, instead of, I should have done this, I should have done that with this person. Well, you did Well, you did. They're gone now. In that sense.
I think a lot of people said, oh, you know, he's gone too soon, you know, Allah took him too early. But there's no right, you know, it's the right time. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't argue with. It's just coming to terms with it. I think grief means you're coming to terms with it and, you know, dealing with it and like putting it together. It's not a puzzle for you to solve, though, is it?
Yeah.
It's more leave it to Allah.
It's Allah's will.
Yeah, Allah will sort it out. Just, you know, rely on Him in the sense of like you rely on a teacher for your help. You know, just ask the questions, but, you know, and you'll get an answer.
Your full trust, honestly, in Allah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know I could say that. Wow, I sound so knowledgeable. You do. But we're also I'm just gonna ask you briefly about how you think it's affecting yourself, as in your self-love and your self-worth, if you're comfortable enough with that.
Yeah. I think from him passing away, it made me realize how much I don't even know my cousins.
Like, how do you feel about knowing yourself?
Yeah, knowing myself either, like knowing that I'm capable of feeling this much pain has really surprised me. You know, like I used to really just like, you know, nitpick every single one of my flaws all the time. And, you know, just hearing how like he was just so comfortable in himself and so aware of himself and aware of his actions. And I think he only wanted to be a better person has made me realize that actually I am a good person. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, I do. And I shouldn't be like, you know, trying to get every flaw, like, you know, putting myself down.
Yeah, like you should have done this, or you should have done that. It's just, okay, that's been done. Yeah. What can I do now?
Yeah, it just makes you think, oh, you know, I always compare myself to people as well, which...
it's hard to break out of a habit that you've grown up doing.
It doesn't even feel like a habit, it just feels normal. You know? And you don't even realise you're doing it anymore, but after him passing away, it made me realise that actually I should be so grateful that I'm alive, you know, that I'm healthy, my family are, alhamdulillah, and... you know, I shouldn't constantly be comparing myself because I am good enough.
Yeah, I think that is really, to be honest, myself, I feel like I'm getting too much into myself.
No,
but you know, from personal experience, I feel that's still a good journey that everybody will go through every stage of their life, whether it be in grief or it be in, you know, just happiness. You will always do that. You'll compare yourself. I think it's just human nature, quite honestly. It's hard not to, but I think the remembering again, like where you started from and where you'll go. It's like, let's not forget where we are. You know, like quoting Sami Yusuf there.
We love Sami Yusuf.
We do. I feel like that in itself is like, you know, remember where you are and remember, you know, let's not forget where we'll go. Yeah. And then we just let go of all these things, you know. And I think slowly with time, depending on what stage you're at, wherever you are, that will happen, you know. Eventually, if that's where your heart lies, you know, you'll go there. You'll let go and you'll in that sense, the grief that you feel and heaviness in your heart with that pain that you're going through right now, but going back to grief, it will slowly heal. You know, the heal and time healing again. And I don't want you to feel like you personally, I don't want you to feel like, you know, you have to heal straight away, because everybody, I feel like, again, like people say that people can't cry. It's a
journey, honestly.
Yeah, and I feel people, especially young people, don't feel the need that they can't cry and they can't have that space. You know, and I don't want you to feel like that, because you have every right to, because you're upset, you know. So having that and just then remembering like, okay, I've had my, you know, not, you know, I'll continue to have my moments, but it's just you slowly let go.
It makes us human.
Yeah,
you know?
humanity.
Yeah. No, I like your point though on you know, people, you're not allowed to cry. There's this whole thing, especially with the younger generation, I feel like. And even like the older generation, the men, they're like, oh, you know, if I cry, then it shows weakness.
Yeah. I shouldn't be weak, but you've lost something important to you. And I think people forget that again. Like, they're so caught up in it at the same time, but they're trying to put on a facade at the same time. That mask comes on.
They bottle all their emotions.
Yeah, I mean, if it's habit for some people, that's the only way they can cope. That's the only way they know.
Yeah.
But it's also, again, going back to where is that community space for us to let it out? Not just the youth. Obviously, there are some for the older generation.
Yeah.
But for the youth as well, because, you know, there's still that stereotype, still that I don't know what you call it, that divide on, like, you know, should men cry, should men be, you know, or women, should they do this, should they do that?
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to things like this, especially.
People deal with grief in different ways, you know, and I feel like you are kind of judged if you're not like wailing and screaming and crying because you're not grieving, then you don't miss that person. But no, everyone deals with grief in different ways. People maybe don't want to reveal their emotions in front of people.
Yeah, but even in private, I feel there are like some people who don't feel they can even in that space, because even so, like, I think it's just depending on how it is. But if that's the way people cope, I think as long as it's healthy enough, then they should, you know, take the time to just take a step back, you know.
Yeah.
But again,
really
grief.
Relax.
So what else? We'll come back after the short break that we'll go on. But you've been listening to Elevate with Mal and Saf today.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Somalia is facing the worst drought in decades. Livestock and crops are dying in droves. And without rain, children are next. If we don't act now, 350,000 could die this summer. Muslim Hands is on the ground right now, distributing life-saving food and water. Just £100 would feed a family for a month. Your zakat and sadaqah is urgently needed. Please give today at muslimhands.org.uk.
Mar food store Lincoln Road Triangle te inna rush o balle hoy tusani amba ne pure mulk vich role
Pakistani sogatan ji amb le lo jamnu le lo Pakistani taze mithe amb te jamnu aa gaye ji
ਯਕੀਨ ਕਰੋ ਜੀ ਭਾਈ ਨਾ ਮਾਰ ਫੂਡ ਸਟੋਰ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਵਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਡ ਦਾ ਅੰਬ ਮੰਗਵਾ ਕੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਯੂਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਸ਼ ਲਵਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨੀ ਜਾਮਣੂ ਵੀ ਭਾਈ ਉਹ ਜਨੇ ਨੇ ਆ ਪੁੱਤਰ
Amar Food Stores, Al Mashoor, fresh halal meat and groceries. Address 613B Lincoln Road, Triangle, Peterborough. Telephone 01733 687374. Amar Food Stores, Meyar ka naam, Munasib Daam.
Do you own a restaurant or takeaway? Cater Fair is an expert supplier of new and used commercial catering equipment. Visit caterfair.co.uk for quality equipment on sale at the lowest prices, or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
हाँ जी जनाब आज तुसने किया 12 बजे
यार फैमिली की बाहर खड़ना चाहना या खिलाने पिलाने से सोचना कुथे जाओ
इस च परेशानी वाली केड़ी गल है इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट पर जाओ उते फ्री पार्क करो उन्होंने मजेदार ते स्वादले पाकिस्तानी इंडियन चाइनीज ते इटालियन आय 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 खाने ना ते जोड़ी कोई नहीं नाले सस्ते ते स्वादले
ए रक्स इसका मतलब है बटवा भी नहीं होला होनेगा इब्राहिमी बफे रेस्टोरेंट वैरायटी ऑफ डिलीशियस डिशेस के अलावा जेलाटो आइसक्रीम एंड वॉफल्स भी करते हैं वीकेंड्स पर अपना टेबल बुक करवाइए और वीकडेज तशरीफ ले आइए ओपनिंग आवर्स शाम 5 बजे से रात 10:30 बजे तक इब्राहिमी रेस्टोरेंट 63 Sycamore Avenue Peterborough PE1 4JP टेलीफोन 01733 313131
Are you looking for a career where you can make a difference? At Cross Keys Homes, we work with our local communities to create opportunities that change lives. We're looking for enthusiastic, talented people to join our team, from apprenticeships to senior management positions. Cross Keys Homes can support your development while you enjoy great employee benefits. There are so many opportunities for you to shine. Apply to join the Cross Keys Homes team at crosskeyshomes.co.uk.
alaikum. Welcome back to the Elevate Show with me, Saf, and Mal here today. Maliha.
Hello.
And you are listening to Salam Radio on 106.2 FM on Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. So, where were we?
So I think we were kind of going to get into the responsibilities of adults teaching young people about grief and how to process it, but what actually happens after death, you know, the afterlife
definitely.
and everything.
I think that's a bit of a scary subject for some people. I mean, to be honest, for me, I guess I feel people don't touch on it, just in general, because it is that way for people. It comes across as scary. No one wants to think about it. Like you said before, nobody thinks about it.
Yeah.
I think that's why we don't have enough education on it a lot of times. So, and communities just don't want to talk. There's just communities, not just us, not our communities only, just communities in general don't like to touch on it because it's like, okay, it's been a loss. Now we just get on with it and forget about it in that sense a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like there's some like parents out there or adults who feel like that if they do talk about with their kids, you know, the afterlife, they're going to scare them. And they're going to constantly think, oh my God, I'm going to die or something like that, you know?
I think that depends on the person, of course, but how they take it and how they teach it, you know?
Yeah.
'Cause for me, personally, I can only talk from my experience. For me, personally, I value education in the sense of someone talking to me face to face and on my level. Do you know what I mean? Me talking to you face to face, you're understanding me and my level, and I'm understanding you. Well, I hope. But I'm not being shouted at. I'm not being told I'm bad for this and I'm a sinner for this. Because a lot of times there are some things that you hear that you feel makes you feel like you are. Not saying that they tell you directly are, but I mean, it makes you feel that, oh, I've done this and, you know, I know it's not right. Or, you know, you've gone through something and you know maybe you haven't done the right thing or whatever it may be. But, you know, it scares you so much and they're like, oh, you know, I've done wrong, and then you forget everything and you just want to run away. I think that
it just gets too much. It's overwhelming.
You're like, oh, you know, you forget about it, you just push it aside. I think that's the same thing with grief, not just life in general. Just grieving. In the matter of grief, I do think people just run away from it and like, you know, don't come to terms with it in that sense. And when educating, I think it's not only, I feel like when you talk about adults, I think adults do tend to run away from it as well because they're not trying to think about it either. So they don't want to put their kids on it as well. So how do you think we should educate the youth about it, in a sense, coming from a youth?
I think for me, like, you know, when I used to go to Quran lessons and everything like that, we would read Quran, but there wouldn't actually be any like discussions, you know, about Islam or especially about grief and the afterlife. So I think maybe like mosque teachers could actually do sessions on that, where you know, like obviously during Quran lessons, after they've read Quran and everything, they could do like activities with them, or they could read like an Islamic book all about grief, or you know, like just maybe have like whiteboards where they can write down all the their opinions and you know, what they already think about death, and do they actually want to learn, maybe doing a survey
so you mean
about
like
that?
So you mean like a mind map?
Like a mind map.
Mind map. Mind map. I think that's a really good idea, you know, just going into a class, having, you know, your session of like your necessary like Quran lessons, your educational things, but also having the other education being not so stern education, being like, oh, let's have this topic today, we'll discuss these 3 things within this topic, or whatever the topic may be. Having that set part, I think, would really, really help, because I think me and you both probably would have benefited a lot more with it.
So many people would have benefited.
So many. I do agree, definitely. So I think education, when it comes to things like grief, it's a lot more difficult to approach, and I can understand why adults may
shy away from it,
because obviously it's a difficult topic, because it can be, again, it's triggering. That's why obviously the warning, hence the warning in the first place, you know, it is triggering because that makes you think about all the things. But I guess thinking about it also is, again, healing. In the sense of, you know, you're not pushing it away, you accept it in that sense. It's like, again, when it comes to somebody, they accept their flaws, they accept this part of their grief. That being it, you know, you learn to love that, not love it necessarily, but accept it and then move on in that part. And I think that's a good thing if people want to move on from it and want to get on with things. And that's it, because it's sometimes I feel some views people may have maybe, you know, grief is longed out for people, being ceremonies and stuff, you know, every week, or, you know, some stages and some communities might do, like we discussed before, we turn the microphones back on, you know.
Yeah.
Some people do have, you know, gatherings after a week of the person's death, and then after a month, and then after a year, but some people might find that not so helpful, and some people will.
Yeah.
So it's just about that timing and everything. So like, how do you think, well, that was slightly off topic, but how do you think, like, aside from lessons and stuff, how do you think other people can be educated on it?
I think maybe like in the you know, whatever mosque you go to, maybe they, you know, just have like get-togethers, maybe just like women, and not talking about grief or anything like that, just doing activities together.
Oh, okay. So what you mean in general?
Yeah,
like
just
talks
talks, you know. Maybe doing like art sessions there, or
art
like
therapy.
Yeah, art therapy. Honestly,
because in that sense, you're not forgetting about it, but you're not exactly concentrating on it.
Exactly.
If that's if from this grief stage,
you can just let go and everything, clear your mind. Like
draw a picture.
Yeah, draw a picture. Like even maybe like some yoga sessions or something like that.
Cool. Yeah, that would be really good. I think.
Honestly. Book clubs, you know, something like that, just to get your mind off it. Feel like you have a safe place to go to, another community, you know, something like that.
Of course, we are Muslim, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's death, I guess, is talked about a lot because it's how we live. It's, you know, it's part of what we lead up to, basically. You know, the life that we live here is for the life after, and the process of that. Obviously, I want to talk about the perspective of it and the support that schools provide as well, of being like for the people of religion. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you feel like, I don't know, are you still in college or you've just finished, haven't you? But say if you were still in that system and as a person of a religion, do you feel like it was catered to? I mean, we also talked about the Muslim community and the Muslim side of it, but how do you feel like in general, everyday life, aside from that, how do you feel like it would have been?
I feel like at college, if I was still at college, I don't think there would have been like any sort of like support, if I'm being honest. That's only because, you know, when I did lose someone else, there was like no support or nothing. It was just kind of like, we're sorry, in an email. There was no sort of like grief session, anyone to talk to.
Not let me just take you outside and just discuss it with you.
No, nothing like that. So I was not supported and I didn't feel like I mattered.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's extremely bad, quite honestly. I feel like, of course we can talk about you know, Islam and our communities, but our community also involves our schools and our education systems being not just the Islamic ones. I think not having that as well is just even more of a. I do understand that feeling, because again, when I went through that stage, I felt so alone. Like these people didn't understand me, like, because you live in both worlds. You're living in two different worlds in the matter of one.
You just don't feel important or cared for. You know.
So was that? I'm sure it was difficult, but did you find a way to cope with losing that other person in that environment that you were in?
No.
So you were just...
It was, for me, like, I just went in because it was a distraction and I just couldn't be at home. And I just found that going to college, it made me feel productive and I could get my work done and just get away from everyone. You know, I just felt really isolated at college, you know, when I was going through my hard time. And, you know, it's just like the teachers not being there, you know, and I didn't really tell anyone either, but, you know, I had Samaya, who was just an amazing, supportive friend, and she definitely helped me.
We love her. But, I mean, do you think that is a way for young people to deal with it in this society? And, obviously that's not an ideal one, but I mean that's the way it is, quite honestly. It is.
That is the way it is.
Distraction is the way it is, and I think it's quite sad, honestly, for that to be the case, because we should have proper ways, like just in our school societies, in our school environments, we should have not a room, just be pulled out from the class just to take 5 minutes, just for them to understand, like, you know, of course your lesson is important, but also my life and my heart is important too.
Your mental health.
Your mental health, because at the time, you know, it gets pushed aside and quite roughly. Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
But yeah, well, we'll just move on to the next. I'm not rushing you there.
No.
But also want to talk about the something that, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not take away our loved one. Like, this is just from the notes that we have. Instead, he gifted them to us in the first place. Allah has honoured us to know and love the individual from the amount of time that he saw fit, which we discussed earlier. I think that people just, again, a reminder that that is a really important thing.
Yeah.
So I don't have to explain it. I'm not very good at talking.
Yes, you are.
But grief about perspective. Let's go through the 5 stages of grief, right? We have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So that is a lot of stages and quite a lot of big words.
Yes.
So denial, how do you, obviously you're in the early moments. So can I ask which stage you feel that you may be in and how you feel at that stage right now?
Could you read them out again?
Yeah, of course. So I went a bit fast there. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Maybe bargaining.
Well, to be honest, I don't really understand what it means by that, quite honestly. I mean, like, is bargaining...
I feel like it's like middle.
Yeah, like, you know, you sort of... Is it real, is it not? You're kind of just guessing.
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me. Because for me, I think you kind of... Some people just jump straight in, you know, jump from stage to stage quite fast and quite just either one to the other, really. Nobody really thinks about the 5 stages that you go through. So, like...
Yeah. I didn't even know those were the 5 stages.
I think that's a lot. That, again, education, there's not a lot of it. So even I didn't know that quite... I'm sat here, like, talking about it. I don't know. But there's no real way of describing grief. And for them to put it in words, I think... It is a good representation of what it is for some people, most people, quite honestly, because obviously they couldn't have just done it out of, I was going to say it's this. No, it's not like that. It's what majority of people may feel. Yeah. But I think there's no human words to truly describe it. And the sharp pain in the chest that you must be feeling, and, you know, the notes that we have here, you know.
I think it's also just like feeling anxious all the time, on edge.
I can imagine, you know, after losing someone, you have that fear in you as well. Like, who else?
Honestly.
Yeah.
So anxious all the time for everyone, you know, my family and everything. I'm just so scared. Like, even when the phone rings, I get so scared.
I can imagine. It's traumatic. I think people don't talk about the trauma.
So much trauma.
Trauma is a big thing that people shy away from. And I think it's quite sad, honestly, because to get through that in the first place, when we talk about grief, to get through it and let it go, you've got to talk about it, or not even approach the trauma, approach your pain.
Yeah,
I think that's how you have to deal with things, and that's how it has to be, really. So, you know, and the loss that you feel and the things that in life you only know when you experience. So obviously you've experienced it, I've experienced it, majority of people will have experienced and will in life. There's no matter of denying that. For somebody will, but, you know, coming to terms with it, it's really difficult. Again, it's just hard, and I feel people keep saying this, but it really is difficult, and I just hope people understand that we're not trying to, you know, push the idea of you should just let it go. And no, what we're trying to say here is there is so many stages and different people and different times and different stages, and wherever you're at, wherever anybody's at, that, you know, just take your time, obviously, and, you know, trust Allah. That's the point. That time, you know,
always have faith.
And, you know, people don't talk about this subject enough, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because it was Maliha's idea. Everybody, she went, because obviously she's going through that, and for her to come around and say, I don't have this support, I don't have this, is such a strong move. So well done for that.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come on here, honestly.
We've been both given this opportunity to talk about something like this, and for us to share our own experiences, which is amazing, for other people to hear. So then nobody's
feels alone,
because at a time I'm sure you must have felt at least once.
Yeah.
Because there's no denying people don't. So,
especially because obviously, like, it's not talked about enough, so it just feels like, oh, am I the only one feeling like this right now? You know?
Yeah, you know, the heartbroken moments and this tears and, you know, the feeling of it all, you feel it on your face. I remember the feelings.
Yeah.
I'm sure you quite honestly remember, you know. It might sound cliche to some people, but it's not. I mean, it's not a cliche in the sense of that actually people experience and remember those moments as well.
They'll never forget.
Never forget, because that's a moment, you know, and to get over that, just, you know, just rush over it. You know, it should be spoken about. And this subject is so important for especially not just people, but just young people and, you know, everybody really.
Yeah.
So I can understand why you wanted to bring it up, so thank you. For anybody who's suffering, just so everybody's aware, those who are suffering in any part of the world, we both, Samaya couldn't join us today, but she also sends her deepest heartfelt prayers to anyone and to you. I know you may be obviously suffering, and, you know, this is such a hard time for everybody. And again, grief is grief, isn't it? So is there anything you want to say?
I think another way for healing for me was like giving to charity in my cousin's name and giving sadaqah. And, you know, Prophet Muhammad said the best charity is giving water to drink. You know, with every drop of clean water drank, blessings will come to that person who's passed away, your beloved one. Right now we are raising £6,000 to invest in an ongoing sadaqah project in my cousin Amir's memory. And so there will be constructive water pumps going to Pakistan in Sindhi. I don't know how you say that.
Don't ask me, I'll struggle.
It will be on justgiving.com. So please, could you go and donate, and also keep his mum Sabila and his sister Eliza in your du'as, and pray that they have sabr and happiness comes into their life.
Inshallah. Also, just mentioning that briefly, you did say that he was such a strong character in the community. I'm sure many people are aware. Obviously, the people who listen must, you know, have an idea. So, the website. What was the website?
Justgiving.com. www.justgiving.com.
Perfect. So, just anybody who knew them or who was aware of anything, if they have the time and have the ability, please do give in. And just because it's not only a benefit to the person, the deceased, it's also for a benefit the family and yourself.
Yeah, you get blessings too from this as well.
Obviously, it is a very important thing. Just touching upon it again, you know, the whole matter of grief, and also you coming out with this experience, just for you to come on this radio show and talk about it is enlightening to so many people and myself. So thank you again.
Thank you.
But it must have been a very difficult part just on your half. How do you feel about it? How are you feeling?
I was really anxious to come on to this radio show, especially because I'm not a very open person. I don't really like to talk about my feelings, and I feel like I've never been this open before, honestly, and a lot of people will be surprised seeing me on this.
I think a lot of people, a lot of youth must feel the same way, because some people don't have that outlet. So you are here to speak on their behalf. I'm here to speak on their behalf basis a little bit. So, you know, I'm really glad you did, because just so you know. But we've got 10 more minutes to speak about this. So I think a lot of people should, you know, come away from this and just understand that grief is not something to be ashamed of. And just take it in. Basically, the subject is really hard to discuss in the sense of there's not a lot of things that we know about, quite honestly. I mean, life after death, we all know. I mean, we all know that, the good and the bad. But when you think about when you've lost somebody, I don't know about you, but I do think a little bit about the things that they might have done. Like, you always remember the good, but I don't know how to explain it. Do you ever just think, you know, you wish them the best, don't you?
Yeah.
So you think about yourself as well. You're like, I've seen this now. Like, you know, I've seen that. I need to do my best. You know, there's that, just that pressure again. It's not the pressure. It's the realization.
Yeah,
realization of where you are, where you're going to go. You know?
Honestly, I think, looking back and everything, it just makes me realize that I should just be so grateful, and that I should, just try my hardest at everything, and, say yes to every opportunity out there, not discourage myself or try and talk myself out of it, or think that I'm not good enough to have this opportunity, but to really just be proud of yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back sometimes, be your best friend to yourself.
I mean, everybody's their best friend at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's just trusting Allah. I think if we come back to religion wise, I think just remembering that Allah is all powerful and all knowing. Yeah. And He knows what's best for you. Just, it's not that you can't question. It's, it's just try and understand the best you can.
Acceptance.
Just accepting, okay, it'll take time because no one's rushing. No one's saying just accept it right now and forget it. No, everyone, it's just time will pass, and eventually
time heals as well.
Like again, some use of healing. But I mean, again, it is a difficult topic to speak about, and I think it is a bit triggering, so best on our best behavior with words. So it's just about dua as well, what you can do for them as the people who have, after they've passed, what you can do for them is just make dua for them. What else would you do? What you do in the water pump, that's amazing, on their behalf. Doing something on their behalf, I think is amazing.
I think, also just like visiting their grave, putting in flowers, just praying over, their burial, making dua, just, like for me, I would like to say your beloved one knows when you visited their grave.
I think they do.
Obviously I know there's different school of thoughts about that and everything, but I would like to think that, and I hope they feel that we're still connected, because sometimes you feel like you can't connect with a person once they're gone.
That's a very, very valid point.
Yeah,
I do feel people forget. I mean, everybody is important to somebody, and when obviously they lost that person, but eventually time, you move on. I'm not saying you forget the person, but some people do. Some people do go through that point where they're like, forget that this person was there, and that is so difficult. And it's so hard when you remember and you're like, oh, I regret not going to see them and do this and that. When you're after they've passed, going to see them at their grave, or going to even just remembrance in that sense. So it is just remaining intact with them, basically. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I hope I got that right.
Yes, you got it spot on.
But yeah, it's just, again, remembering, and just, again, sorry for the loss of course, everybody who's grieving and everybody who's going through whatever time difficult. I don't think grief is only just as in somebody passing. Again, we discussed this off the mics. But grief is also, you can lose somebody even if they're still alive, which is in the sense of you lose that connection with somebody, and just maintaining what you have now is something I think people should do as well.
I feel like especially if you had such a strong connection with them and then they're just no longer in your life, but they've just gone away, that's grief. You've lost someone, who
you trusted or who you had that connection with. I think that can come in friendship, relationships, any sort of form that you think is important, that it's not touched upon in that sense. I think we didn't really briefly, we didn't talk about that very much. We still have time, so we will. But I do think that stage isn't talked about enough, like relationships and friendships that you have, how to deal with the grief within those, in case if you ever go through the loss of a friendship or a relationship, or how would you think you would deal with that sort of grief?
Well, I have lost friendships before, and it's definitely like now sometimes I question what if I was still friends with that person, how would I act, what kind of person would I be around them, would we still have a close relationship, a friendship, and losing a friend is really hard.
Oh, of course, because I don't know about you, but even if I see them around and stuff, I feel the ache, because in that sense, when you lose someone, you just remember. But when you see all this person, you remember and you see the person, there's still that active bit. I think that's why some people might turn and say, this is more of a painful heartbreak than losing some. That's maybe not quoting that. Don't go with me, but you know what I mean. I think friendships are such an important part, and relationships in general. People don't touch on the grief of just losing someone walking out your life, or someone just leaving, in the sense of, you know,
especially because you just opened up to them. They know everything about you. You know, it's hard to lose a person like that. You just loved and trusted so much.
Definitely. So we have now come to the end of our radio moment. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing.
I'm really glad you've come on. So we'll just say, you know, Allah will heal you, your inner bleedings. You know, and inshallah that, you know, you'll be healed, and all of us will be, whoever's suffering, inshallah, we're all, you know, loved. We all are loved by Allah. So Jazakallah khair for listening, and inshallah we hope through this conversation you learnt something, and we had that discussion and you feel good.
Yes.
So thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Bye.